next to our wonderful stage, we're going to welcome all the way from Namibia, the lovely Kombada. Now, Kombada, I'm going to just hand over to your wonderful self, I think, to say some words to kick us off, and then we're going to get to go into a discussion. So over to yourself.
Thank you, Sarah, for those wonderful words. It's not often that I get referred to as lovely, so that's a nice introduction. I would like to first start by thanking Matt and the organizers for inviting me. This is my first time participating in the Responsible Raw Materials Conference, and I would like to thank the organizers for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work. I've organized several events myself, so well done, team. Um, I would like to just put a note that my talk is a bit different from the previous presenters. It's an individual take. So it's an individual take on what collaboration means to me, and it's coming from a Namibian perspective or a Southern African perspective. So I am going to start my talk with just briefly giving you context on who is this person who is talking to you. So this is a bit about me. How did I get to where I am today? And how my collaboration experiences have shaped me. So is my take as a geoscientist in an African space, just an individual spin on collaboration. So as I was introduced, my name is Kombada Mhopjeni. I'm a Namibian person, and I have a very diverse background. I started my undergrad studies at the University of Namibia, and then I moved on to South Africa. Most of us in Namibia, because it's a small country, we go and study in South Africa. From there, I studied in the Netherlands. And then I also studied in Australia, and I was also in Perth. And over my career, I have studied with different researchers in these different institutions. And I can say that at all the research institutions, different approach, different take on same solutions. So, and I will give context to that later when I give my insights. Of course, I started my journey at the Geological Survey of Namibia in 2004 as a simple, young, bright-eyed mapping geologist, and I progressed into GIS and remote sensing. And as I went up my career, I moved into data management and information management. And from there, as I went further up the ladder, I kind of moved into the science policy space. And this is now those people who are scratching their heads and saying that my profile says UNESCO. From science policy and advocacy, I gradually moved into science governance, and then I found myself at the United Nations. So I currently am the National Program Officer for Natural Sciences at the Windhoek UNESCO office. And the previous speakers mentioned a lot of initiatives, AMREC and so forth. I have colleagues who have worked in AMREC. So through my journey, I have touched on various collaborations that I mentioned before me. And before I start with my particular insights on collaboration, I just wanted to say that my journey from a bright-eyed mapping geologist to the UN was made possible by many supportive people on my way, starting with my family, my dad. I had very supportive bosses at the Geological Survey of Namibia, in my universities all over, especially in Australia. I had very supportive supervisors. I did an internship at CSRO. I had wonderful people. So many people of different cultures and backgrounds have opened doors for me. Now, on collaborations. I attend a lot of meetings, people with good intentions. I'm the person who is on the receiving end of when people sit in the Western world and say, "Oh, I want to collaborate in Africa. Oh, I want to make a difference. I want to make the mining world better. There's poor kids in Africa. Let me go there." So it's people like me who are at the receiving end. I'm sitting in my office minding my business, and bunch of European scientists or Australian scientists or American scientists come and say, "We want to collaborate. We like Namibia. You have great geology." What does it mean for a scientist like myself in Africa? So, as I said, best intentions don't always work. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a bit tricky. Mind you, I'm a female, I'm a young lady. There's all this drive about, well, I was when I started with the collaborations. There's this drive about involving young people. And because of these initiatives, I often found myself as the youngest in the room, the only female, and the only African. So this is as a result of all this diversity, initiatives of inclusiveness, and so forth. And I might say that I ended up in all these meetings often saying that I appreciate that I'm invited and so forth. But please note that Africa is a vast continent, and my experience and my perspectives only apply to Namibia, and if I can stretch it, perhaps to Southern Africa. Now, the previous presenters mentioned a lot of keywords, which I'm going to touch on. And number one that was repeated a lot was the word listen. So a lot of people highlighted the importance of listening to your collaboration partners. Trust was also mentioned a lot, and our communication was brought up quite a lot. Throughout my collaboration journey with various scientists from different countries, I've collaborated with people from Europe, Australia, Latin America, US, Canada, spanning from geological surveys, academia, private companies, and NGOs. And I think some of you are wondering now, how old is this woman? I'm not going to reveal that in this talk, but let's just say that I'm no longer qualified as an early career scientist, nor can I apply for the Young Earth Scientist Network. So all these people have given me different insights on collaborations, and I can testify that trust is a very important component. I think some people think they have good intentions, but because they don't take the time to understand the culture that they are working with, we have misunderstanding in communication. Respect is important. And I've seen a lot of publications about helicopter research and so forth of people coming from, let's say, northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere and dictating to southern researchers and kind of not viewing people as equal partners. I think it's a two-way street, and communication is very important. And one of the good recipes is to acknowledge our differences and to learn from each other, and also to have empathy. I think that was mentioned by the previous presenters. That being that while your colleague might say, okay, where is a good place to meet? You might find people from the Northern Hemisphere will be like, oh, yeah, South Korea is a nice place. And then the guys from Southern Hemisphere are like, it's very difficult for me to get a visa to go there. I'm going to spend 6 months trying to get a visa while you are doing your research. Or, uh, you know, I need to get funding. It's expensive for me. And also, there's been this dialogue about mining is not welcome, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Some of you are having challenges that mining is viewed in a bad light. That is different in the Southern Hemisphere. Our priorities are different. Here, governments want mining because our unemployment rates are high. They need to find jobs. They still need to fill up their basic quotas when it comes to UN Sustainable Development Goals. So sometimes there's a mismatch when we are talking about what we want to collaborate and what is a relevant topic. And the biggest, I think, challenge or an opportunity that is still to be properly explored is I have met a lot of well-intentioned people who want to be inclusive, who want to bring diversity, but what does it really mean? We are coming from different cultures. So a person might have all these nice, correct words, but when it comes to work, they don't consider your culture. So for instance, for European scientists, um, you can be very direct on certain things, or maybe hierarchy doesn't matter. On my side, if we have a funeral, I'm not answering emails for 2 weeks because I'm organizing family funeral affairs that include 300 people. And on your side, you want me to give quick comments on a paper. So those mismatches, or for instance, on our side, when we start our emails, we try to be as polite as possible. We try to see how you are. If you tell me your cat died, I will start my email by saying, I hope your cat is well. But then when I tell you that my father passed away last week, you just go like, oh, XRF results are here. And then I'm like, so those cultural differences can make the difference in collaboration. Now, I know somebody might say this is social sciences, but before we get to the sciences, yes, we all have bachelor's and master's degrees. We are human first, and we are brought up differently with different cultures. And maybe one of the common things is Western scientists coming to Africa, or at least Southern Africa, and asking, "Oh, I have this idea. What do you think?" And you're met with a wall of silence. We don't operate like that. An elder asking me, "What do I think?" I have lots of opinions, but I will not tell you because you need to make sure that it's safe for me to give opinions to you without repercussions. So those cultural nuances matter. But of course, despite all these insights, I can happily report that I've been one of the fortunate ones that in between the challenging experiences, I've had many good experiences in collaborations with people from different cultures. Even for myself, my talk was from the Western African perspective, looking at the West. But even my fellow Africans, when they collaborate with Westerners, have a lot of improvements to make in understanding the two different cultures. And I think I would just like to close off by saying that there's all this talk about sustainable development, responsible mining, and so forth. But I think there should be also responsible science, and we should just acknowledge the hang-ups that we have at the back of our minds. Um, I think, and it's nobody's fault if you're not used to applying for visas, but just remember that your colleagues have to apply for visas. And just remember that just because you come from a culture where your funeral arrangements take 2 days, maybe the other person is dealing with a culture where it takes 1 month. Please take that into consideration when we are planning our project proposals, uh, talk submissions, whatever. And also, I would just like to make a note. I didn't put an abstract for this conference because I think there was a misunderstanding in the communication. So I will blame myself. So I was supposed to ask the organizers clearly. I assumed that I was just going to present. And when I received the request for the abstract, I was like, I do not remember getting a request for that. So this is just a small example that relates to myself on miscultural communication. And I think with that, I hope I'm not over my time. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share my individual insights on collaboration from a Namibian perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much, Kombada. That was absolutely amazing. Round of applause, everybody, for the wonderful Kombada. We've got a few minutes actually available for questions. I'm just going to remove your spotlight so that we can all see one another. Um, I'm running quite a large set of workshops in a few weeks' time. And to that, we're going to have people from all around the world. Kombada, in terms of trying to encourage people to share those aspects, I guess, of their culture and what works well for them in terms of collaboration, do you have any suggestions as to how we can get people to know one another and actually feel confident enough to almost ask those curious questions to say, okay, what's the best way to communicate or how do we work with one another? What do you have any suggestions to that?
I think one of the things comes down to respect and trust. And respect, I mean that my input is actually meaningful and I'm invited because you actually want to hear from me and not just because you want to say that you have a diverse group of people on your panel or something. So I think it's very important to come across that you really want the input and not just because you want to fill a quota. Because I think, was it John before me? He gave a nice example that I can use as an analogy where he mentioned that you come up with set opinions, you hire consultants, you hear what they say, and then you do something else differently. So I think the same goes with sometimes people organize these events where you have all these different opinions presented to you, and then afterwards you go back to business as usual.
And Kombada, with that, from a Namibian perspective, say I came to Namibia and I made a suggestion and you went, oh yeah, very good. And then you thought, actually, no, we know better than that, or whatever. This is what we're going to do. How would you welcome me into your decision making? Does that make sense?
Uh, I, I maybe rephrase your question a bit differently. I'm not getting you fully.
Yeah, no, 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 that's totally fine. So I think it's a case of if I'm trying to understand how you would have that, or if you were facilitating that conversation, for
Hmm.
example, what would be your natural way of doing it? And so I'm just a participant, for example, and you're convening and pulling people together. How would you be doing it from your angle? What would be a natural cultural way of doing it?
I, well, I mean, I would just be mindful, read the room, listen, and just take note of the different backgrounds that you have in your audience and on the panel, and just try to see when you think you're seeing red flags. I know it's not easy sometimes, but I think even if you make mistakes, as long as people can see that it's coming from an innocent space and you're trying your best to learn, you will be okay. So I think listening and learning is very important.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kombada. There are a number of questions coming in. I've got one just quickly before we go on to our next presentation. And this might be a difficult one, but from your perspective, okay, do you have a favorite collaboration that you really enjoyed being part of, or it
I
led
have
to something
I have
awesome?
several. I
Okay.
have several. I have several. I think the collaborations that I really enjoyed were the collaborations where even though we came from different cultures, we all respected each other and made accommodation for each other's differences. And also the ones where there was genuine trust. The flaky collaborators, partners who you help out, spend a lot of resources, and they publish later and you don't know about it. No, thank you. So yeah, I think trust is very important because we are all busy, and if I give you my time and energy, I think we need to respect each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Kombada. Everyone, round of applause, please, for the lovely Kombada. Excellent. Thank you.